Hello everybody. Today I am replacing the front pads and front discs on my Toyota MR2 Mark III. Here we have the original front discs, which are quite badly scored, and the pads are quite thin, and these are the new ones. These have been obtained from Roadster Sport. They have an eBay hub. I'll put a link to that in the details, and if you use code AS1 at the checkout, you will get a discount. I've gone for both slotted and dimpled, not cross-drilled front discs, because I've heard the drilled versions can gain stress fractures, however the dimpled versions don't. As far as the pads go, the part number is DP1295, they're EBCs, and that is the part number for the discs. Alright, now the first step is to remove the brake caliper. To do that, you're going to need a 14mm socket. There's a 14 just there, and there's another 14 just there to help you find them yourself. Now, I didn't personally need to do it, these just came loose straight away, but there is a nut on the other side, and if you find that this is just spinning around and around, you're going to need to get a 14mm spanner and secure that nut there to allow this end to break off. Once you've done that, there's then 17mm bolts to remove, which take off this whole housing. So there's one just there, and I've put a crow's foot on the other side. Where's it at? There it is there. Okay, so the caliper then just slides off. We can see the piston. It has got all kinds of nastiness built up, and these are the brake pads here. Brake pads look like they just pull out. That's what we're left with. On the other side. Right, the 17mm bolts that hold on the caliper housing do not come off easy. They're on real tight. I had to abandon using a ratchet, and I've had to swap to a torque wrench, so be prepared to do that. Okay, and that's the housing off. And now we can get to the brake rotor itself. For some people, they're lucky enough for it to just come off. There's no chance I'm going to be that lucky on this car. It's so rusty, it's like it's been parked under a lake for 20 years. These two bolt holes, at least on the rotor of this particular car, do absolutely nothing. So the only option I had to free the rust was to smack the outside edge of the rotor with a hammer. I had an 8-ounce hammer, the kind of thing you'd use to hang a painting in a wall, and that was not up to task, so I went and bought a 16-ounce hammer, and it's just starting to come loose now. I had to smack this thing really hard. I thought nothing was happening. All this rust was falling out the bottom, but it looks like it's come loose now. So that's it. Alright, time for new pads and rotors. For an optional extra, I have cleaned up the hub with a wire brush and then added a thin coat of copper grease at all the contact points, so hopefully it's not so rusty again in future if I need to get that rotor off again. And here I'm using a caliper rewind tool to push the piston back. Wow, that's a nice improvement. Okay, so as an aside, the front left and the front right rotors have slots pointing in opposing directions. You know that you have got the correct rotor on the correct side if the slot is pointing towards the back of the vehicle. Then we can put the carrier back on, get those 17mm bolts back on the back nice and tight, and then it's time to slip the brake pads in. Alright, now some people apply grease to the ears. That's up to your personal discretion. And the other thing is that this indicator tab tends to be installed on the bottom of the inside of the carrier. But again, that's up to your discretion. And they just slip in like that. Pretty easy. There we go. And now it's time for our compressed caliper to go back on. Like so. And the 14mm nuts can then go back in. To make the torque settings completely clear, the 14mm bolts that hold the caliper on go to 34 Newton meters. Meanwhile, the 17mm bolts that hold on the carrier go to 108 Newton meters. Okay, and this is the finished product.